we are going to record the session as well in case you face any technical issue. So we are recording and we will share the video afterwards. As I said, my name is David Redondo. I'm part of the UCS training team together with Cyril and Sol, who is connected. And first of all, if we are talking about any type of transaction in Umoja where we need some assistance, the first thing we should do is to go and check the job aids section. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with this process, but since what we want to review is very much transaction oriented and how to do the steps in the system, first thing I'm going to show to you is how to get to the job aids. Job aids are basically documents that specify step-by-step process and are your best friends when it comes to Umoja system navigation. So in order to access the job aids, we should go to this website. 1 second. I'm going to open the browser. So I'm going to open the browser so you can see there. We go to iseek.un.org. And then here, sorry, no, it's not in iSeek, it's in umoja.un.org. So if we go to umoja.un.org, you'll see here on the header of this page, the section called Job Aids. So if, okay. All right. So if we go to Job Aids, we'll have a long list of hyperlinks for documents. They are categorized by topic. So we have general, employee self-service, facility management, financial accounting. And when it comes to fixed assets, we have also a section called fixed assets management. This is the section that you should have always close to you if you are working with fixed assets. So remember, you have to go to umoja.un.org, job aids, find the fixed asset management section. And this today we are going to review the fixed asset retirement. So we have a job aid here, point 4.1. 4.1 called retirement of asset. And this is the document we are going to use as a reference for the session today. So as you can see here, the document has two sections, retirement with revenue and retirement without revenue. So the first one is without revenue, the second one is with revenue, sale. So the purpose of this session is to cover retirement with revenue. So we go here, we click on the link, and we start reviewing the document. So my idea is to go basically through this document and then jump to the system from time to time to perform a demonstration. All right, so this document explains some important points if you are selling items by UNDP, or if you're selling the assets to staff members, etc. But if you go point by point, it will guide you very well, and it's very detailed. The first section that you see here is referring to service notifications. Notifications are these documents that are supporting the right of process. And you have here an introduction on how to get a report for service notifications to identify the fixed assets that you want to retire. But in your scenario, after you contacted us, I understood that you already have a list of assets that you have to retire. Is that correct? Olusegun, do you want to say something? So my assumption is that in your case, you already know the assets that you have to retire. So we will skip a bit this part of reviewing the notifications, and we will go directly to the system. And please allow me to log into Moja right now. Actually, I already have this training environment. So I'm going to open this here. I will remove the job aid. And I'm going to log into the training environment to show the process of the fixed asset retirement after checking small reports or quick reports to give you a bit of background. So I'm logging. This is just access to Moja, and I'm sure you are very familiar with this already. So here we are. Maybe this, I don't know if this is the side of the screen is too small, but if you cannot read or you have any issue, please don't hesitate to write on the chat or unmute yourself if you can, and let us know if you have any issue or any question. So could you please try to unmute someone, because I'm not sure. Can you unmute yourself? So we start from one report before going to the pure retirement process. The report we are going to see is an equipment asset report that will give us an idea of the assets that we have in a particular mission. So in this case scenario, we are going to use assets from UNGSC. Okay, so with this report, and you can see here the T code is also in the job aid. The T code is ZAA AQAS rec. So this is a report, this equipment asset report. This is the T code that you can use. It is said is because it's customized for UN asset accounting, equipment asset record reconciliation, it's called. So this is the T code. With this T code, we can get a list of assets and, let's say, equipment master records, and will give us an idea of the status of the equipment. So this is the report. We specify company code, and we are going to also identify the one mission, one particular entity to get the assets. In my case, in the training environment, I'm going to use 20 BLA as a fund code, which is the fund of UNGSC. But in your case, when you run this in production, just enter your fund, okay? So you can always, as usual, you can search here and try to get UNAMID, and you select it, and that's it. So after selecting the fund, I'm going to run the report, and I should get a list of assets, and also its corresponding their corresponding equipment master record. Why we run this report? Because before you decide to retire a fixed asset, there's supposed to be a notification for write-off and a write-off case approved. Also, the equipment master record should be in certain status, and as this is very well explained in the job aid as well, if you run the report, you can get you can see the status of the equipment, and if you identify some of them that are in a status, and it is written here, you want to find the ones that are ready to be sold. So we have here the list, sale disposal method. So if you find, here it is, you should find equipment and fixed assets whose status is AQSL, sale disposal method. And this is what we are doing. We are running this report to identify the assets that are in this status. This is a long list of assets. In the training environment, of course, I didn't process all the write-off and all the situation that you will do in production. But this is a useful report for you to confirm that you are retiring the proper asset. And if you scroll to the right, you will also find the status of the equipment master record. This is only for your information, but it's a process that is a best practice, and it's advisable to do it before proceeding with the retirement. So after you do this and you confirm the asset and the equipment is in the proper status, we could go and check the T code to retire the asset. Now, before doing that as well, I want to open an example. I would like to open one asset master record to see the difference between a fixed asset that is retired and one that is not retired. So, do you want to add something? Okay. So I'll change the font size so you can see it better. Could you unmute yourself, Sol, or you cannot? Unmute, yes, because why cannot they cannot hear you? I think. I'm going 1 second before continuing with the presentation. I'm going to change the font size so you can read. You can read better. Hopefully. So 1 second. Could you say something, Sol, to see if it's working? Your audio. Yeah, cannot. You cannot unmute yourself.
Yeah, here I am. Thank you.
Also, please, if you have any question, you will have to unmute yourself and just ask. All right, I think it's better the font size.
Yeah, and just remember, guys, that you can always write or type in the chat whatever doubt or concern you have. So feel free to ask.
Okay, so what I was saying, we're going to see one asset master record before retiring as well. This is a best practice. Let's say that using the previous report, we identified some assets that need to be retired, and now I'm going to open one asset that was actually already retired. So if you know what is the T code to display a fixed asset, I guess you know it already. But if not, I'm asking you, and I'm kindly asking you to write on the chat if you know the answer. What T code shall we use to display the asset master record? Can someone write on the chat if you know? You can find it on the bottom of the page. You have one button called show conversation, and if you want, you can write there. Okay, so okay, I see some people are joining still, so it's good that we didn't start with the retirement. So the T code to show an asset master record is AS03. And in this case, we can enter the asset master record 10. In this case, I'm going to show one of them that it's there in the training environment. And I would like you to pay attention to this asset master record and check at the bottom of the screen the posting information where you see deactivation on 1st January 2020. This field is very important because it tells you that the asset is deactivated. It means it was retired. Another indicator of the asset being retired, apart from it being deactivated, is if we check its net book value. Okay, so this fixed asset is retired. If we go to asset values now to see the net book value, we can see that its net book value at year end is empty. So at the beginning of the fiscal year, it had this net book value, so 844,000, and it was reduced, and its net book value is 0. And as you see at the bottom in the transaction section, you see one line that says this asset was retired with revenue. So this is an asset properly retired with revenue. Okay, this is an example. So this is, let's say, the picture of how the fixed asset that you want to retire, how they should look like. So this one is already retired. We will not retire it because it's deactivated already. Let me show one that is still active. For example, if I take the asset number, if I take this asset number, you'll see it's not deactivated. So the activation on is empty. If we go to its assets values, okay, don't worry about this error. It's telling me that we close the fiscal year, but that's it. It's not a problem. But if we go to the net book value of this fixed asset, you will see that its net book value at year end would be 2,740,000. Okay. So, and his value at the start of the fiscal year was almost $3 million. So this asset, the 16001441, that is a dynamic UPS, a very expensive one, is not retired, is active. And this is the asset that we are going to use for this example. And this is the asset that we are going to retire. Do you have any questions so far? We just check, just to recap a bit before going to the actual retirement. I first went through this report, which is the fixed assets equipment reconciliation report, to see a list of reports in our mission, and then we can filter by status to identify the ones that are in write-off process whose disposal method is sale. And then we went to the asset master record to confirm that this one is not retired and see a one that is retired. Is this clear? If you have any question, please, you can unmute yourself or you can write on the chat. So, Olusegun, is it okay? Do you have any feedback? Can I continue? So I assume that if you are not writing anything on the chat, okay, then I assume it's okay. If you have any issue, just basically you can try to unmute yourself and let us know. Before, okay, so now we'll go and we will retire this asset with revenue. But remember something that I already mentioned by email, and you have to keep in mind. This process of retiring the fixed asset with revenue is supposed to happen when the retirement of the asset, so the write-off of the asset, and the sale happen in the same fiscal year. And please pay attention, because the fiscal year is not your budget period. The fiscal year does not go from July to June. Fiscal year in fixed assets go from January to December. So this process should be applied with sale if we are doing the write-off and sale in the same fiscal year. So for example, if the write-off process happens in February and the sale is confirmed with, so you have the amount that you're going to receive from the sale of the asset in February, in March, April, June, November, that's okay. You can you retire with revenue. But if the write-off happened in September, October, and by the time you will get the customer and the amount, it's already the following year, you should not wait to retire the asset. Okay, the instructions from New York is to retire the asset within the same fiscal year. So when you are approaching November, December, if you see that you don't have yet the sale completed, you should retire without revenue. Okay, Sol?
Just 1 minute, David. Olusegun mentioned that he had a poor connection, that he missed the past 5-7 minutes. So maybe we could do a recap of what you what you explained. I think it was only the asset master record, the two, but just for him to catch up.
All right, absolutely. So basically, let me recap again. What I explained at the beginning was first how to access to Umoja job aids. So we went to umoja.un.org. Then we click on job aids, and we found in this long list of job aids the ones referring to fixed assets. Okay.
Again, they are telling me that they have poor connectivity, maybe.
Okay, so if you are facing issues, don't worry, because we are also recording the session, so you will be able to watch it later on. Okay, I'm sorry for the connectivity issues that you are suffering. So, but we are recording and we will upload the video later, so you can watch it also offline. So we will continue with the process. So we open what I said is we will find here in the job aids area the fixed asset retirement, the asset retirement of asset job aid, and this is the one that you were seeing opened here. Oh, one moment. And this is the one that you can follow to support your process. We went to retirement with revenue, so sale, and here we were reviewing the report to show the status of the equipments that are equipment records that are also assets. So here in the job aid, we found the report, which is this one, is the equipment asset report. We use this T code to get the list. Then what I did was to go to the system already and show an asset master record that we want to retire and one that is already retired. So the one that is already retired, we know it's required because it says deactivation on, so it's already deactivated. And also if we go to asset values, we will see that its net book value at year end is 0 because there is a change of a negative posting. And here we have a retirement with revenue. So this asset is already retired with revenue because it says deactivated. We are recording, right? So there is then I wanted to show another one, another asset master record that is active. And I'm showing this to you because this is the asset we are going to retire. So this asset master record is not retired because the activation on it's empty, and it also has its net book value that is almost 3 million of dollars. So this is the asset we are going to retire. And what I said before, what I mentioned, and I'm going to repeat, remember, you will only retire with revenue or you should only retire with revenue if the sales process is completed in the same fiscal year as the write-off. So if the write-off happens in 2019 and the sales is completed in 2019, you retire with revenue. But if the write-off process happens in 2019 and the sale process is completed in 2020, you will not wait for the sale. You will retire the asset. You will remove its net book value from the financial book. So you retire the asset in 2019, and whenever the sale is completed, it will be recorded, but it will be more a finance process later on. All right. So for such a scenarios when the sale happens in the same fiscal year as the write-off process, I'm going to explain to you the process. I'm showing this to you, but it's very well documented in the job aid as well. Okay, so if you continue with the job aid, you get to the retire of the asset. This is for FA15 users. I guess you are FA15 users, otherwise maybe you are FA16, but most of you, I am assuming you are FA15 users. The transaction to be used is this one, okay, ABAON, and let's go and retire the asset, ABAON. This is the transaction that we'll use to retire the asset with revenue, okay? It's called asset sale without customer because we don't enter it. The first number that we need to insert here is the asset number. So this is the asset I want to retire. I already checked it. And now we'll see the field that we need to enter. Document date is the date when we are processing this transaction. So we can put today. And then asset value date is very important. Is the date when the retirement is effective. Now, so you can confirm as well this one. In asset value date, what we will enter is the date when the right of case was approved.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So for that, you might need to check the notification that is supporting the right of process. Okay, and maybe check the attachment. So here we will enter the date when the right of process is approved. You want to add something?
No, just mention that if the notification is properly used to track all the steps, all the write-off, the retirement of the assets, as David mentioned, you should have an attachment with the right of approval, and this is the date that you should use here. That's it. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Sol, for this very important comment. So in my case, because this is free environment, and I mean, I just need to put the date, so I will put maybe, I don't know, 1st January, for example. So, or maybe we say 2nd, no, because on 1st January nobody was working and approving right of cases. No? So let's say that the right of case was approved on 2nd January, and we already know the amount that is going to be paid because there is already a sales order and we have the customer already. As a text, we will enter here, and then you can also go and check the job aid always. So I'm doing this because it's important for you to know how to proceed. No, you go to the job aid, you follow the steps, you go to the system. So here it's telling you in the transaction tab, you enter the posting dates. The asset value is the actual retirement date of the asset. In the reference, you can enter the in the text, you can enter some information. So retirement by sale with the notification number. So we can enter here. I mean, we know it's retirement by sale, but we can put it here as well. Retirement with revenue notification, and then we put the number of the notification. Okay. And then here in this section, specification for revenue, we will enter the amount for which the asset is going to be sold. So how much we're going to get from selling it. So this is why it's important to have it in the same fiscal year. If you don't have the amount, you don't know the amount, you cannot retire with revenue. For example, even if you decide that the write-off is with revenue, the write-off disposal method is sale, if you don't have already a customer and you don't have already the sales order and the agreed amount, you wouldn't know what to enter here. Okay, so let's assume that for this fixed asset, we're going to sell it for the amount of 2.5 million. Okay, and this is the amount that the customer is going to pay for this asset. What else we need to enter? So we go back to the job aid. The job aid is telling us go to additional details tab, and we enter the posting period, the transaction type, and the reference. So in additional tab, posting period would be the posting period of the asset value day. So we are retiring in January. So it's the first posting period. Okay, this is corresponding to the month. As a transaction type, this is an important information that we indicate to the system to do the financial accounting posting. In the case of if you're following the JOA, you wouldn't have any doubt. So if we are retiring with revenue, will be 2,210, 210. So the transaction type that we will select is here. You can see also from the match code, retirement with revenue is 210. And as a reference, we can enter, or we should enter the sales order number. So if we are retiring with revenues because there is already a sales order that has already an amount, and we'll enter here the number of the sales order. I think there is another comment, Sol. I'm muted, Sol.
Sorry, Olusegun is asking that in the case that the write-off and the sale have been concluded in the same fiscal year, but for any reason, the retirement has not been effected until the following year, how to handle it? Basically, I guess he's asking if we can retire retroactively in a retroactive way, something like that.
So the mute yourself 1 second. Yeah, that's a good question because sometimes it had happened in the past. So let's say the business rule is you must retire on the same fiscal year. If it didn't happen, then you must backdate as much as possible the retirement of the asset. So if you are retiring now, probably the fiscal year 2019 might be closed, and the posting period in 2019 might be closed. So you can try. You have to backdate asset value date as much as possible. All right. Ideally, you should be retiring on the previous year, so you can try. But probably, I mean, right now is what is end of January, so maybe the fiscal year, the previous fiscal year is closed. So then you backdate as much as possible. You can put it on 1st of January. All right. So the rule is retire on the same fiscal year always, and if not, if it didn't happen, backdate as much as possible. All right. I hope this helps to clarify the question. So we enter the transaction here, and this is all about asset value data. We have to put asset value data as close as possible to the approval of the write-off case. Transaction type in this case is 210. This is telling the system what is the process or what is the type of retirement that we are doing, and we specify the sales order. All right, this is important. You need the sales order to retire. So what else we need to enter here? And if we go to partial retirement tab, the next one, we will see here an option that says prior year acquisition, current year acquisition. This is very simple to choose because if we are now in 2020, all the assets that you will be retiring will be prior year acquisitions. So basically, the most common case when you are retiring assets is to choose the option prior year acquisition. So when was this asset acquired? Prior year, right? Because it's not, you didn't acquire in 2020. And only if you acquire something on 2020 and you retired those on 2020 because something happened, hostile damage, or I don't know, or something happened, then you might select this option. But most of the cases, and I'm assuming your fixed asset as well, they are prior year acquisition. Anyway, this is something that you can double check in the asset master record. So if you are in doubt or you are not sure, you can go and check the asset, AS03, enter the asset number, and you can see here when it was capitalized. So this one, for example, was capitalized in 2014. So for sure, it's a prior year acquisition. Prior year, it doesn't mean that it's only the previous year. Huh? It's anything that is before the current year. So we leave it like that, prior year acquisition. Okay. And then even the job aid is telling you, do not enter anything else on this screen. So you see the job aid is very, very complete. And that's it, basically. Let me recap what we entered. So if you have any questions, just please go ahead. In transaction data, so we enter the asset number. Then we put document date today, and posting date today is possible. Asset value date, if possible, the date when the right of case was approved. We extract this from the notification, and then we put in the text a reference to the notification. So in case auditors wants to cross-check, they can go backwards. We put here in the manual revenue the amount that the entity acquiring the asset is paying. So it's the amount from the sales order. In additional details, we put the posting period when we are retiring, transaction type 210 because it's retirement with revenue. Okay, even in the job aid, there is a reference to transaction types. If you get confused, you have it as an attachment at the end of the page, at the end of the document. Retirement with revenue, a bounty code for sale. Transaction type is 210 for prior year acquisitions. Okay, this is your case in most of the times. And reference to the sales order. There must be a sales order, otherwise you wouldn't know what is the amount that is going to be paid. And as a partial retirement, we enter prior year acquisition. Anything to add, Sol? Okay, thank you. So this is all. And now, before posting, important as well. We have to click on simulate, because you know this transaction has a strong impact in the financial statement. It has a strong impact in financial accounting. So you need to cross-check that what you did makes sense somehow. And here you should always have these 4 lines. If you are retiring the asset with revenue, the first 2 lines, the one that start with 271 and the one that start with 278, show you the net book value of the asset. So it's telling you that we are retiring an asset whose acquisition value was this amount and was depreciated. So these 2 lines are more about getting the net book value of the asset. And then you have a line here very important that is telling you sale fixed asset for $2,500,000. Okay, so 2.5 million. This is the amount that we are going to receive from the customer. And there is a final line, an adjustment that is showing you the difference between the net book value and the price that the amount we are getting from the customer. So in this case, we have a loss of $389,000. Okay, sorry. I needed to drink some water. Okay, so the simulation will tell us. So let me recap. The simulation is telling us that we are getting $2.5 million for this asset. We are losing this amount because the net book value was more. So actually the value of the asset in the books was more than this. So we are losing this. If we were selling it for more, we will get a gain basically. But this is good for you to simulate that. At least you see the 4 lines, you see what the posting that is going to finance. So this is what we are receiving and we are returning completely. And after checking this, and if you are unsure or something, you can always ask your FA16, your finance colleagues, to confirm that this posting is fine with them. even though it's automatically, it doesn't need to do anything. And then we click on save. I think there is a question. So there is a question from Amin saying, should this description field, should the description field be changed to indicate disposal completed at all when retiring the asset because it changed the description of the right of request? What description? If you are talking about the description of the transaction, sorry, I got some errors. I will fix it now. The description of the fixed asset should not be changed. Okay, because the asset will be retired. So the question is to indicate this person completed at all when retired the asset because it changed the description of the right of request. No, you don't need to change the description of the asset at all. So after it's retired, the activation date of the fixed asset will change. And then what you need to do is to then go to the notification and indicate that the task that was related to the asset is completed. But this is also done by the right of planner. And a question from Olusegun that says, in case the sales process is not complete in the same fiscal year as the write-off, and we have to retire the asset, do we retire the asset with T code 210 or 200? Very good question, Olusegun. Actually, in this case, you don't have to use 210. So the point, let me open 1 second. Yeah, and it's actually different T code, right? So let me go to the job aid. So if the sale will not be completed in the same fiscal year, what did I say? Even though the write-off says disposal method is sale, if you know the sale is not going to be completed on the same fiscal year, you will retire without revenue. And then you will follow the process that in this case is a different T code. It's not ABAON, is the process that Sol explained some time ago. Let me go to the T code 1 moment. So you will use ABAVN, right? Okay, ABAVN to retire the asset without revenue. And in this case, the transaction is the transaction type is not 210, right? It's even explained here. Okay, here is not entered, but you will have to select it. Yeah, from the last page, it will be 200. So let me just go here. So if the asset is not sold in the same fiscal year, you retire without revenue. So you will use, if it's a prior year acquisition, okay, you will use 200. All right, you will use 200. And yeah, one second. So I want you to see the change. I need to fix one small thing on the asset master record. You can. Okay. So 1 second, because I couldn't post it because it has a different posting period. Give me just 1 second. If you want Sol to summarize a bit what we were doing while I'm fixing this.
Yeah, maybe thank you. Okay, just to give you a clue, a very nice clue. Please always follow the job aid, as David is doing now. And in the last page, you have a very good summary without revenue, retirement, transactions type that you have to use. And if you remember what we did with the retirement without revenue, the transactions are very similar, but are not the same. So it's not enough with changing the code, but it's a different T code as well. So keep this in mind. And I think that's it. It's the most important thing that you have to remember.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I just perform again the transaction because I had a technical issue. So now should be okay. So we click on simulation and then we Okay. The system is telling us that the asset transaction posted with document, so we get the document. And in theory, this retirement with revenue has been completed. So what should we check now after retiring? Can someone reply to me on the chat? So I already retired the asset, so I completed the transaction. What shall I do now to make sure that the process went well? Any suggestion? So at least I know that Olusegun and Amin know how to write on the chat. So please reply to this question. Where do I go? Very good. Someone is saying update the notification. That is a very good comment. So we go there. We will update the notification saying that the write-off process has been, the retirement has been completed. Very good. We already simulated and I already posted, but I want you to verify that the asset was properly retired. What would we check? So what information would you review to make sure that this asset is now retired? How do I know enough? How do I know if I look at if I look at fixed asset master record if it's retired or not? Any idea? I think there is one new comment. Notification, very good. And check the activation date. Thank you. This is what I was looking for. So the fixed asset in theory is retired. So now we go to the T code AS. We go to the T code AS03. And we want to display the asset. And we see now this asset we checked before going through the transaction and it was not deactivated. So I can see now the activation on 2nd January 2020. So the asset is retired. Okay. Also, Natalie mentioned it in his comment, in her comment. So yeah, it's retired. And a final check, we go to asset values and we see that now in the net book value, the GRN value is 0. Before it was only this amount, almost 3 million, now has been reduced to 0. And in the transaction, we have retirement with revenue. That is for historical references. The transaction is recorded there, so we know what happened to this asset in 2020. So this asset has been properly retired with revenue. And that was the idea and the purpose of this session. If you don't have, do you have any other question? Otherwise, we can leave it like this, and we will send you by email the job aid, the link to the job aids as well, and the recording of the session. Any other question from your end? So thank you to you for your patience at the beginning of the session where it seems that we were in two different Teams meetings that were running in parallel. So that's all. Thank you so much. Have a good day and let's stay in touch if you need anything else. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye, guys.